My ordeal in the shadow of deception. I always prided myself on my judgment, on a foundation built on hard work, honesty, and empathy. I never thought I was naive, but looking back, I question if love truly blinds, or if my emotions simply hijacked my common sense. My world was turned upside down by a woman named Vanessa, a woman I met 2 years ago in a small cafe, a place I frequented almost daily. She was studying in the U.S. on a student visa, working part-time as a waitress. Our meeting was straight out of a cliché movie: a spilled coffee, an apology, and then an instant connection. She was from Mexico, and her story of struggling against economic hardship to pursue her dreams in the U.S. resonated deeply with me. Our relationship blossomed quickly. Within months, we were inseparable. Vanessa was sweet, attentive, and seemed to share my aspirations for a stable future. For the first time in a long time, I believed I'd found someone I could truly build a life with. But around our first anniversary, a subtle shift began. Vanessa started speaking more and more about her family in Mexico. Her father, Rick, who lost his job. Her mother, Angela, battling health issues. And her younger brothers, Mark and Luke, struggling to find work. Her descriptions of their desperation struck a chord, and I couldn't help but want to help. Initially, it was small gestures, sending money for food and medicine. But soon she hinted at something far grander: the invitation to deception, a family's temporary visit. One evening, Vanessa proposed bringing her entire family to the U.S. on tourist visas. She painted a picture of a temporary stay, a brief respite while they got back on their feet. She assured me they would find work and eventually either return to Mexico or establish themselves. Blinded by love, I agreed. This, I now realize, was my first colossal mistake. I didn't hesitate to dip into my savings, covering the costs of visa applications, interviews, and plane tickets. I even rented a small apartment for them to stay in, convinced it was an investment in the happiness of the woman I loved. When Vanessa's family, her parents, Amalia and Carlos, and her brothers Mateo and Luis landed in Houston, I was there, beaming, holding a makeshift welcome sign. Vanessa was radiant, speaking of a new life. Their initial greetings were warm, but a subtle unease began to creep in. Amalia, Vanessa's mother, immediately commented on the apartment's size. "It's smaller than I thought, but I guess we'll get used to it." It wasn't gratitude, but a quiet disappointment. Days later, Carlos asked for a bigger TV, saying the 32-inch I'd bought wasn't enough. Vanessa backed him up, dismissing it as a small request. I rationalized it, convincing myself they were just adjusting. The unraveling. Temporary becomes permanent, requests become demands. But those small requests quickly escalated. Vanessa began making decisions without my input, even buying new furniture with my credit card. When confronted, she'd shrug it off, promising repayment that never came. Mateo and Luis claimed they were job hunting, but I rarely saw them leave. When they did discuss work, it was always about under-the-table jobs, construction, restaurants, anything to avoid scrutiny given their tourist visas. My cautious suggestion about them returning before overstaying their visas was met with Vanessa's sharp retort: "Why would they go back? There's more opportunity here. It's not as hard as you think." Something in her tone made me uneasy, but I brushed it aside. My savings were hemorrhaging. I was covering their rent, their purchases, their emergencies. Every attempt to set boundaries was met with Vanessa's guilt trips about her family's struggles. Months passed, and what was supposed to be a temporary arrangement began to feel chillingly permanent. I clung to the hope that I was just being paranoid, but deep down, I knew the truth. I was being used. The first definitive sign came when Carlos casually mentioned looking into visa extensions or even asylum. When pressed, he shrugged. "We'll see how things are when the time comes. No need to rush." The way he said it, as if leaving was never an option, made my stomach churn. Meanwhile, Mateo and Luis disappeared for long stretches, and Vanessa insisted they were working, though I never saw a dime of their supposed earnings. Then came the demand that floored me. One evening, Vanessa casually suggested I help her brothers find better jobs, despite their tourist visas. "You know people," she pressed. "Just ask around. They're good workers. They just need a chance." When I reminded her this was illegal, she rolled her eyes. "Why are you so rigid about this? Everyone does it." This was my breaking point. I had helped within legal and ethical boundaries, but she now wanted me to cross a line, and she didn't seem to care. The cold revelation, a calculated scheme. Vanessa's demeanor shifted. She became distant, cold, dodging any conversation about my concerns or accusing me of being selfish. How can you talk about limits when my family is here because of you? Now you want to turn your back on them? The guilt was overwhelming, and I kept giving in. But the gnawing suspicion intensified. One day, while dropping off groceries at their apartment, I overheard Mateo whispering to Luis about the next step and how they just needed Vanessa to convince me. They froze when they saw me, quickly changing the subject. Something was profoundly wrong. That night, I decided to take serious action. I secretly installed a voice recorder in their apartment, a desperate measure that felt like a betrayal, but I knew I was the one being manipulated. The tension between Vanessa and me grew unbearable. She spent less time with me, her phone a constant companion, her conversations hushed. Then she began pushing for us to move in together, closer to her family. If you really love me, this wouldn't be a problem, she'd argue, making me the villain. It was then I finally admitted the painful truth. Our relationship was no longer about love. It was about her needs, her family's problems. I was a means to an end. The recordings confirmed my worst fears. On the 10th recording, I heard Mateo tell Luis he's almost ready. Vanessa says it's just a matter of getting him to sign those papers. And if I didn't, he will. She knows how to handle him. Besides, after everything he spent, he won't say no now. My blood ran cold. Further recordings exposed the full extent of their deception. Amalia discussed with Carlos how Vanessa needed to pressure him to sign the papers, and if I didn't, they'd find another option. Carlos assured her, she says he's convinced it's all to help the family. That poor idiot doesn't even know what he's getting into. Then came the conversation that shattered everything. Vanessa, speaking to her mother, explained her plan. I just have to present it like it's temporary, something that won't affect him directly. It's a simple contract. He won't even read it all. Amalia asked if she was sure I'd go for it. Of course, he loves me. He always does what I ask. I'll tell him it's for me, that if he doesn't sign, I'll be devastated. I couldn't believe it. Every sacrifice, every act of generosity was part of a meticulously crafted scheme. This wasn't a desperate family seeking help. It was a calculated plot to use me as a tool to secure their residency in the U.S. The papers they were pushing me to sign? A sham marriage contract, granting Vanessa legal residency and, by extension, opening pathways for her entire family to stay. The rage and humiliation were overwhelming. I was a pawn in their game, but I wasn't going to let them get away with it. The reckoning, exposing a deeper conspiracy. For days I grappled with how to proceed. Confronting them prematurely would leave me vulnerable. I played along, feigning ignorance, while secretly gathering more proof. I consulted an immigration lawyer who confirmed my fears. Signing any fraudulent documents would expose me to serious legal consequences alongside Vanessa and her family. My lawyer's words fueled my resolve. One morning, while Vanessa and her family were out, I went to a legal aid center and filed an official complaint, detailing everything. This wasn't just about justice, it was about protecting myself. My lawyer advised caution, but also urgency. After leaving his office, I went straight to immigration authorities, presenting all the evidence, including the damning recordings. I knew this was a gamble, but I had no choice. I had to prove I was being manipulated into immigration fraud. That evening, a tense dinner invitation from Vanessa presented an opportunity. Instead of refusing, I told her I'd stay home, but we could talk later. As soon as they left, I searched their apartment. Hidden away, I found it. A sealed envelope from a law office containing a pre-filled marriage contract with my name on it and a blank space for my signature. A handwritten note was attached, "Sign when you're ready." My blood boiled. They had planned this all along. I was merely a pawn. When they returned, I was ready. I confronted them, my voice steady, my conviction unwavering. They tried to deny everything, but the evidence was undeniable. That's when Vanessa dropped the act. Her sweetness vanished, replaced by a cold, hardened stare. "Are you serious right now?" she hissed. "You don't know what you're getting yourself into. Just walk away before you make things worse for yourself." But I didn't care. I was in control now. Echoes in Los Angeles, a darker truth revealed. The confrontation unleashed a torrent of change. The tension in the house became unbearable. Vanessa tried every trick to get me to retract my complaint, but I stood firm. Immigration authorities took my report seriously, and what began as a simple fraud investigation quickly spiraled into something far more sinister. An agent contacted me, revealing something shocking. Vanessa's brothers, Mateo and Luis, had ties to the Cartel de Sinaloa, one of Mexico's most feared criminal organizations. A deeper investigation uncovered their connections to human trafficking, drug smuggling, and weapons distribution, along with extortion schemes. I was stunned. I knew something was wrong, but I never imagined it ran this deep. As the investigation intensified, authorities tracked their movements and connections within the U.S. It didn't take long for everything to unravel. Mateo and Luis were arrested during a surprise raid on a warehouse suspected of cartel activity. Several members of the organization were caught, including Vanessa's brothers. But the revelations didn't stop there. Authorities discovered that Vanessa's family had been actively helping smuggle cartel members into the U.S. illegally, and that their ultimate plan was to use our marriage to secure legal residency for even more cartel operatives. The final blow came when prosecutors linked Vanessa and her parents to her brother's criminal activities. Despite her attempts to downplay her involvement, the evidence was overwhelming. In the end, Vanessa, her parents, and her brothers were all arrested. The trial was swift. Mateo and Luis received long prison sentences for drug trafficking, human smuggling, and other cartel-related crimes, a significant blow to the organization's operations in the U.S. Vanessa and her parents, however, were deported immediately, banned from ever returning to the U.S. due to their ties to organized crime and proven immigration fraud. Their dream of staying in the U.S. had utterly collapsed. The legal process, surprisingly, moved quickly. I never saw Vanessa in person during the proceedings. When I heard about her arrest, I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and profound sadness. It had been a cruel game, but justice had been served. The worst part was never truly understanding why she did it. The woman I once saw as my confidant was just another pawn in a vast web of deception. In the months that followed, I received several letters from Vanessa from a prison in Mexico, begging for forgiveness. But it was too late. I couldn't and wouldn't forgive her. The wider implications. A glaring connection to current events. This personal ordeal, while specific, resonates deeply with the current unrest and heightened immigration enforcement in Los Angeles. The recent ICE raids and the deployment of National Guard troops and active-duty Marines by the Trump administration are aimed at curbing precisely the kind of exploitation I experienced, albeit on a far larger and more organized scale. My story highlights how individuals can be unwitting pawns in larger criminal schemes. Vanessa's family used the guise of desperation and the vulnerability of a romantic relationship to facilitate illegal activities, eventually revealing ties to a major cartel. The ongoing protests in Los Angeles, while ostensibly about immigration enforcement, also implicitly touch upon the complex and often dangerous dynamics at play. Exploitation of immigration systems. My experience shows how existing visa pathways can be manipulated for illicit purposes. The reach of organized crime. The Cartel de Sinaloa's ability to infiltrate and operate within the U.S., using seemingly legitimate means to establish a foothold, underscores the pervasive nature of transnational criminal organizations. The human cost. Beyond the legal and financial repercussions, the emotional toll on individuals like me, who are caught in these webs of deceit, is immense. It speaks to the devastating impact when trust is shattered by calculated manipulation. The events in Los Angeles, characterized by escalated enforcement, protests, and even violence, are a stark reminder of the complexities of immigration and border security. While many seek refuge in a better life legitimately, there are also those who exploit these systems for criminal enterprise. My story serves as a chilling testament to the hidden dangers that can lurk beneath the surface of seemingly everyday encounters, and the profound reach of organized crime into the lives of ordinary citizens. This experience taught me a brutal lesson. Sometimes the people you love the most are the ones who will betray you the hardest. Vanessa and her family thought they could use me, but in the end, I was the one who walked away victorious. And their plan crumbled in the most humiliating way possible.